Hello, my name is Jason Rutberg. I want to talk to you about this whole end the Fed thing. Yes, there are people who are ready to end the Federal Reserve as we know it, which means, make it so the Federal Reserve would no longer exist, IRS would no longer exist. This certainly hasn't happened since, I don't know, 1913, that the Federal Reserve was brought into being. And basically, what we've seen is that some people believe that the existence of the Federal Reserve is why we have all the problems that we have in society. The whole overinflated monetary system. And some people are like, you know what? It's time to end it. Because the Federal Reserve is owned, is a separate corporation. It's not federal, and it's not a reserve. There's really no money in the Federal Reserve, or very little money. It's never been really audited. Well, it's hard to say that there's no money. Let's just say that there is a question if there is any money actually in the Federal Reserve, because it's never been audited. The government doesn't have any real oversight on it, and basically passed over the responsibility of printing money to a private corporation.
I can, as a member of Congress, I can find out more information about what the CIA is doing than what the FOMC is doing, the central bank, what they're doing on monetary policy. That's very, very secretive of what they're doing. But the Congress created it, so it's not like General Motors being a private company. In some ways, it's almost worse than just saying private. The benefits are privatized, and yet it's ultra secretive and all powerful.
So people are like, hey, this is the problem. This is the problem. If we get rid of the Federal Reserve, everything is going to be better. Yeah, well, what people don't seem to understand is that the Federal Reserve is not just ingrained in the United States. The international monetary system, which is what the Federal Reserve is supporting, is invested all around the world. And in fact, if, for example, OPEC decided to stop buying, oil in US dollars and went to euros, our economy would crash. Same thing as the other types of issues that we have, such as there's no money backing it. So it is actually backed by something. It's backed by oil. But that's not the point. I'm not here to talk about the history of the Federal Reserve or anything else like that. I'm talking about this group of people who actually believe that if we just get rid of it, society is going to be better. The question is, what do you replace it with?
We're at the point that in addition to the three measures I prescribed since the summer of 2007, that we have to add another provision as a result of the degree of corruption which has been introduced to the system since the summer of 2007. We now have a corruption of banks, or what were once legitimate banks, through the contamination with the market toxic waste, such that we can't simply reorganize and protect banks in a simple way. We're going to have to, in a sense, look at each bank, determine what corresponds to a legitimate bank under Glass-Steagall standards, and take that part of the bank that corresponds to the Glass-Steagall standards and put that under protection, which means you will essentially probably have a bank in the same place physically, but you'll have the operation of the bank as a functioning bank will be confined to the Glass-Steagall standard. The rest of the funds, or the claims associated with what is that bank now nominally, this mixed bank of legitimate and illegitimate credit and debt, we're going to have to put the other part, the part that comes out of investment banking through mergers and so forth, that will be frozen and has to be frozen under federal and state bankruptcy proceedings, chiefly federal. So that will be essential, because we must protect the normal banking functions of chartered banks and their assets, and we must separate that from the dubious claims to assets, which is the other stuff that comes in from the bankrupt investment banks. So that's going to have to be done. That's the essential one change in what I prescribed last year, 2007, that has to be made now. This means we will also have to have a very rapid restoration of the original Glass-Steagall legislation and put that in effect immediately as a supplement to the protection of the reorganization of banks which otherwise would be bankrupt.
Now, I haven't heard a viable argument as to what you can replace the Federal Reserve with. Yes, it's bloated. Yes, we have an international debt. Yes, we owe debt to all these foreign countries because they bought our U.S. Treasury bonds. But what do you replace it with? Yes, I could even say that, you know, we have the fiat currency. We have the whole concept of you put $10 in a bank and they loan out 90 based on the credit capability. And that's why if the credit markets dry up, you get massive bankruptcies, which is what we saw in the bailout situation. But now we have the automakers saying, we want a $25 billion bailout. So we have an interesting situation here. If we don't bail out these people, if we don't keep the printing presses running, if we don't keep devaluing the dollar, we're headed for ruin. But is the answer just to pull out the Federal Reserve? Just rip it out of society, tear it apart, you know, pick it up and lift it apart and, you know, get rid of it? What do you replace it with? I have not heard. I don't know what Ron Paul thinks about that. I do know some interesting things, though. I do know that Lyndon Larouche has been proposing for a very long time actually to take the Federal Reserve, or to take the entire international monetary system, declare it bankrupt, and in doing so, use the treaty-making powers of the United States to make a treaty with Russia, China, and India to reorganize the entire economic system, taking us back to an FDR-like state where we could actually invest in infrastructure projects to employ people, like building maglev trains to Africa. This is some very interesting stuff, but I don't see Lyndon Larouche talking to In the Fed people. Why is that? Why is Ron Paul not talking to Lyndon Larouche, and why is Lyndon Larouche not talking to Ron Paul? I don't know. I do know that YouTube has their YouTube Live event scheduled on, guess when? The date of the Federal Reserve protests. And when is that? That is November 22nd, 2008, in a few days from now. So why is YouTube Live running on the exact same day, the biggest event on YouTube, running on the exact same day that the In the Fed campaign is running? Got another question for you. How come people aren't naked? You know, you want to get their attention, do what PETA did. Get naked. If you get naked, you get media attention. Ron Paul had 10,000 people protest in like August or something like that at the White House. National media did not cover it. PETA goes and strips naked somewhere, and everybody's looking at him. Now, don't you think the Federal Reserve and ending the Federal Reserve you know, going back to some of the things our founding fathers talked about would be significant enough to get naked for? You tell me.